Sundar Pichai is the new top dog at Google's parent Alphabet.
We'll discuss what this means for Google, YouTube, and the rest of the tech world.
Stick around for your daily charge.
Good morning and welcome to the Daily Charge. It's Wednesday, December 4th. I'm Ben Fox-Rubin.
I'm Ayaz Akhtar.
I'm Roger Chang.
And let's get to today's headlines. Late on Tuesday, Google founders Larry Page and Sergey Brin announced they were stepping down from day-to-day management of their massive tech conglomerate. Sundar Pichai, who was installed as Google's chief in 2015, is taking over the entire business, which includes long-shot projects like driverless cars and delivery drones. So, Ayaz, does this change anything with Google, Alphabet, you name it?
I wouldn't think so right away, because if you look at how Google's been managed since Pichai's been there since 2015, it hasn't changed like tremendously, other than the fact that Page and Brin could actually reorganize the whole company. Now that you got Pichai in charge, I could see him kind of flattening the company out a little bit if he wanted to, but then again, you got Page and Brin and a whole bunch of other guys on the board of directors to determine what actually happens to all the other companies.
Yeah.
I would say, culturally speaking, there are going to be a lot of questions about it because Sergey Brin and Larry Page were famous for sort of bringing this kind of almost chaotic culture of basically do whatever you want, kind of experiment on different projects, and the whole "don't be evil" thing that was clearly from them. And companies kind of set their culture based on their founders, right? And so with them leaving, it's kind of a tenuous time right now, right? There are Google employees that are constantly threatening to unionize. There are a lot of morale issues over there. So there are a lot of issues with them leaving. I think some Googlers expected Sergey Brin and Larry Page to come in and fix it, but instead it seems like they're kind of jumping ship.
Do you think that this is the sign of the times? I mean, obviously, we've been talking a lot about the tech backlash. These two founders have not been the face of the company for at least the past couple of years now. Yep. It's been Pichai. So do you think they kind of saw the writing on the wall? So that's kind of my reading of it, that they said, we don't really want to fix those problems that you were talking about, Roger. Instead, we'd rather just step away and, I don't know, hug our billions and billions of dollars that we've made.
I mean, to Ayaz's point, I don't think a lot's going to change because Larry Page has stepped away from daily operations for a long time at this point. I think it's pretty well known that he's, I don't know if it's checked out is the right word, but we'll just say checked out.
Yeah.
And that's why, because Sundar has had such an active hand in running Google, I don't think it's going to change when he elevates to Alphabet.
Yeah. Ayaz, do you think that Pichai is going to get rid of some of these moonshot projects?
I don't think so. I mean, those are essentially like Page's babies, and the fact that he's going to be running X as well, or managing, overseeing X, that's the one with the Project Loon that has internet on balloon, the energy kites, and bizarre things you could think of. I could see Pichai keeping that going for a while to see how long something is profitable, because so far X is not, and other bets has not done great.
None of it's profitable, right?
So that's all crazy stuff, but you never know what's going to come out of it that works. So that's why you have these ridiculous kinds of things, because who would have thought, oh yeah, self-driving cars, the search company is going to make that work, and they did.
Well, also still not profitable though. Either way, next up, Qualcomm revealed a new phone fingerprint sensor that's 17 times bigger than the current iteration in the Samsung Galaxy S10 and Note 10. That should make it easier to use and potentially even more secure, allowing it to read two fingers at the same time instead of just one. It won't be any faster though. Roger, iPhone rumors?
Yeah, the most interesting aspect of this is the rumor that the next iPhone will incorporate this technology. Qualcomm has hinted that they have suppliers who've committed to using this technology. So of course they're not going to say who it is, but we know it's pretty certain Samsung will use it. If Apple does it, it's an interesting wrinkle. I am a little concerned though, because we've tried the fingerprint sensor from last year, the 3D sonic sensor, and it wasn't great. It sometimes didn't read. It was slow. And the fact that they're saying that this isn't any faster, it continues to be a concern to me.
Right. It also had security issues, which Shara Tibkin wrote about in her story today. They fixed those, but it still kind of raises some of the questions about this new tech.
I think a Qualcomm representative said something like, we've tested out 99% of the covers, because the way this flaw worked, the in-screen fingerprint sensor was reading the actual screen protector and not the thumbprint.
Yep.
Because
Brilliant.
It got fooled. They did patch that. So Qualcomm is very aware of this, and they're going to try to make sure it doesn't run into the same problem.
I just remember because I got an early look at this fingerprint sensor at the beginning of last year. or beginning of the year before actually, and they talked about how it worked well with water. Like if it was raining, it would still work. It was supposed to be more secure, faster than the optical technology being used elsewhere. But then it all fell on its face because it wasn't good at all.
Yeah.
So,
and you have to be really on top of it to actually make it work, which is why they made it so much bigger.
Exactly. Making it bigger, I think that also the idea is you can use multiple fingers, which makes it more secure.
Mm-hmm.
It's promising in terms of security aspect, but if they can't get the speed down, I don't know if it's really worth using.
I think they'll probably get to that. Obviously, the best fingerprint sensor would be one that takes up the entire screen, unless they bring back
palm reading.
Yeah, you could do palm reading, but I would like to see the button come back in some iteration on the front. I still have an iPhone 8, so I don't know. It is easy to use.
Now that I'm on 10 and above, I'm done with the button.
All right. Lastly, Cyber Monday became the biggest online sales day in U.S. history, reaching $9.4 billion with a B. At the day's peak, people were spending $12 million a minute. What did you guys buy?
I bought something, but I can't tell you what it is because
my mistake.
It's a gift for you.
Oh, thank
and
you.
I don't want to ruin the surprise.
Oh, my
it's
stars.
Not, I'm sorry. It's a gift for my kid, and I know he watches the show every day, and I don't want
He does?
I don't want No, he doesn't. No, I just bought a bunch of random Christmas gifts.
Nice.
Yeah.
I bought nothing on Monday. I bought anything I wanted on Friday, which is 2 items.
Same here.
And then
I bought stuff on Thanksgiving and Black Friday. By Cyber Monday, I was basically tapped out.
Yeah, I didn't really need anything in the first place. I'm like, okay, I want to buy that thing for about 3 months. It's on sale now. I'll buy it. And that was it.
Do we need any of this stuff? I don't know.
No.
I got a Vizio soundbar. I'm pretty excited about that. Anyway, so what do you all think? What do you think the shake-up means for Google/Alphabet at the company? Are you excited about Qualcomm's new fingerprint sensor, or are you generally over biometrics? And are you tired about hearing about Cyber Monday and Black Friday yet? Sound off on the chat, and we'll dig out the best questions to keep the conversation going. BBG, what do we have today? Oh, there we go.
Michael Brown is jumping off right out the gate with us. What can we say about Pichai being the new CEO of Alphabet? What are some changes you think might happen in the long run? And before we answer that, he thinks that Pichai, that we've seen such a change in Google itself being a more mature company instead of being like the college campus that it kind of had the reputation of being. Do we think we're going to see a more polished, more buttoned up Google?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I was interested in hearing from you guys that you were saying, look, Brin and Paige are still going to be kind of involved as board members, so we don't really expect significant changes. I think to a large extent.
Think of it as the changes have happened already. Google is a lot more buttoned up at this point, and it's a lot more corporate. And I think that's one of the issues it faces with its own employees, right? The fact that it's willing to work with the government on things or with the Chinese government on things.
Wants to help with the DoD. There was a lot of concern about that too.
There's a lot of concern from Googlers that the company's cracking down on companies trying to fight back and organizing. And so, in that extent, to that extent, the company has already become that kind of corporate giant that Larry Page and Sergey Brin rallied against back in the early days.
Also, when they reorganized to Alphabet and switching out Google from controlling everything, that I think was another point in history that says, okay, our teams are different now. To bring essentially Google back at the head by putting Pichai there, it should be almost a step back, but I don't see those companies rejoining or anything like that, unless there's maybe one or two offshoots. We've seen that in the past with Nest. They were in Google first, and they became an independent company. There goes my phone, realizing I said the word Google. And
oh no, they're listening.
Nest
Nest
became an independent company.
Run.
And then was brought back into Google under Alphabet. So the whole thing is kind of nuts. So maybe there will be a flattening on certain companies that are more suited to be under other companies.
Well, you can also see Sundar bringing a bit more discipline. He's known as someone, as an executive who's been able to execute over the years, right? He started with Chrome, with the Chromebook and Chrome OS and Android, and really started to consolidate his power as he elevated. But he's always been known as someone who can execute, and I think that's ultimately what they need, is someone who is an adult in the room.
When Pichai
You're
became
describing Tim Cook. Like Tim Cook also took over at Apple, and it became much more corporate. There was a
Right.
lot of concern and complaint that the new iterations of the iPhone weren't really as sexy and exciting as they used to be. But guess what? The company is ridiculously profitable. The stock has done really well, and it's kind of moved on from that founder culture of being, like this aura of Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
So, granted, that wasn't really the case with the co-founders of Google, but it is interesting to kind of see Silicon Valley shift, and there's a bit of a changing with the guard that's happened.
when Pichai, the Chrome guy, became the head of Google, I thought, okay, Chrome OS and Android, they have to merge at some point because you got this Chrome guy head, and they have to figure this stuff out.
Right.
It's gonna happen. 4 years later,
Yeah.
nothing has happened. Like Chrome OS is meant for certain tablets at this point. Android is off of tablets at this
Yep.
point. They're separate and they're distinct. And it's really still strange. I'm surprised that never happened. So if he was that conservative between Chrome OS and Android, I'm just kind of surprised. I would be very surprised to see if he makes major sweeping changes anytime soon. It'd be a very
That's
slow
a very
going kind
good
of thing.
point. Yeah.
Is this the case? Because, I mean, look at history with movies and TVs. Google is always depicted as like, oh, this is the cool, fun place. They ride around on scooters and free lunches. Is this kind of a case of either you die the hero or live long enough to become the villain?
I don't know that they became the villains because they.
I mean, they're definitely coming
basically
across as
receded
more
back.
of a as the corporate entity, though.
Totally. That's true of Google largely, but I think Brin and Page avoided a lot of the negativity that's directed at like a Jeff Bezos, for instance.
Yeah.
Because
because
they're not seen as the face of the company anymore.
Yeah, they're like Sergey for the longest time has been like, it's well known that he was more interested in pursuing his other random interests, experiments, and other startups rather than focus on the core business. And Larry Page he's been kind of reclusive for the last couple of years. Like people barely know where he is.
And wasn't he the CEO of the entire company?
yeah,
Yeah.
Page was.
Officially
yes.
he was.
Yeah.
Officially, he was. Yeah,
Like nobody had seen him.
Right.
They're like, "Where's Larry?" So, yeah.
I remember like years ago when he was still on calls, like the last couple calls he was on, like he had, I guess he was sick or he was ill and there was like voice issues. And then after that, he just sort of like stopped showing up. And yeah, that was it.
Yeah, but going back to what BVG was saying, obviously Google has certainly taken a reputational hit of not being as, fun and freewheeling and,
Yep.
what they used to be. But that's also true of a lot of the other giant tech companies as well. So they're not the only ones that are
I mean,
really
Facebook's-
being revisited.
Facebook's a perfect example of that. right?
Facebook
The-
is like
was
the
it move
poster
fast
child.
and break things, like that whole they like reverse that whole tagline, right?
Because they want to do cyber currency. And they're
Right.
like, wait a second.
Well, we can't do that. We
Shouldn't-
can't move fast.
Don't break that.
Don't break everything.
Don't break the
Don't break-
central
yeah.
bank, please.
We got a question here from Eric Ryder. He says, do we know what Pichai's actual focus may become?
Google and YouTube.
I mean,
that's
yeah.
where the money is.
Thing is that YouTube is still under Google and it has been. So he's already has his hands on that. I mean, even though YouTube's almost pseudo independent within Google, so is Android. They're almost their own things, but they're all under the same umbrella there. So it's going to be hard to tell what he's going to manage, like the same major stuff. I don't think he's going to step in at Waymo, start
No.
messing with that too much. I don't think he's going to step in at what's the other one, like Dandelion is a company that's outside of Alphabet. I'm trying to think of all
What's
the companies under
life
there.
What's the life extending
yeah, there's one. Yeah, life extending
Verily?
company.
Verily. I mean, I think these are like I think he's gonna again bring maybe some more discipline, maybe some more benchmarks and
They
goals.
might kill off some of these.
They might kill off some.
Why
of
are
these.
they in the life science, life extension
Because
thing?
they
What does that
want
have to do with search?
Because rich tech billionaires want to live forever, so they
Sure.
can spend their money
And data collection.
forever.
If we're providing you ways to live forever, we're going to know what you're doing.
I don't know. I think my assumption is that he's not as married to these other moonshots
Right.
as the founders were. So long term, I just wonder if he's going to keep them going. But
mean,
that's just my feeling.
They make
on
enough money to do it to support all these different projects, right?
it. I guess it's true.
I mean, the focus is obviously going to be on Google and the search engine because that's where all the money is, and YouTube where all the money is. But I feel like he probably recognizes, like Sergey and Larry did, like some of these one of these moonshots might be the next big thing, and so it's worthwhile to keep investing in some of these random projects.
Yeah.
Well, what about Sergey and Larry? What are they going to go on to next?
I mean, we have no idea.
I have no idea.
Speculate.
I know, like you
Like
said,
Sergey-
Brin has already put money into.
Yeah, Sergey and Larry
startups.
have put money into different projects like flying cars.
Flying cars.
Sergey Brin is invested in an airship.
Airships. That's what I was looking.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to find out which person was investing in flying vehicles.
both were,
are.
yeah.
Independently.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
And I believe Page is doing 2, and then you've also maybe they'll go into space. I mean, we've got Bezos. He's like, I'm
Yeah.
going to space, and we've got Musk. I'm going to space.
And Branson.
Why are Page of all the people in the world
Not going to
Why are
space?
Page and Brin like, we're staying here?
They have the money. They definitely have the money to do it. They're
Either-
both worth over $60 billion each. So they could do a space exploration project. That is
Maybe they'll
obviously-
run for president.
Maybe they'll run for president.
No,
That
they're not.
is the
Probably
thing
not.
that billionaires do these days.
Yeah,
apparently.
that's the fad, right?
That's what you do. So yeah. What's next for those guys? I like the idea of them refocusing on startups. They were
Yep.
startup guys.
Yep.
20 years ago when they first started Google. My impression is that that's what they want to do again, but that's just a guess.
Page will just buy Netflix. Just like I just want to do it. I just want this. Why not?
Just for himself.
Yeah,
right?
it's like-
And nobody else gets it but me.
yeah, he just
But
wants it.
also, like,
He just wants it for free. That's
Yeah.
all. He's like everybody else can still pay, but I just want it for free.
they could buy a publication too. That's another popular
Oh
thing
yeah.
that billionaires do.
I don't think they want the. I think look,
That'd be a lot of
they're
issues there.
both they're both tinkerers. They're both coders, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think they want to get back to that, back to basics, really, and they've got the resources to do whatever they want with that. So it beats running a company that's
they
getting
could-
all flack all the
Totally.
time.
I think
Yeah.
they're gonna swim in their money like Scrooge McDuck.
That's what I was gonna say. They're
that's
gonna
what's-
build a money bin.
Yeah.
Put their money in there. And just dive in.
Yeah,
I mean,
just don't do it with coins. I never
Yeah.
understood that.
Physics of that.
The physics of it.
Well, it
made
only
no
works for
sense.
Scrooge.
yeah, that's
It
the
only
thing. They
works for
did show
Scrooge.
Watch-
because other
Really?
characters would try and would hit
Plonk.
flat.
I totally
Only
forgot
Scrooge
that.
McDuck was able to somehow
This
gracefully
segment-
Like rich
swim.
superpowers.
Brought to you by Disney Plus.
Yes. really is not.
You can watch
It's
all the
not.
episodes
it
on
isn't.
Disney Plus.
It
Please
really
no.
isn't.
Competitor to CBS All Access.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
there you go.
All right.
All right, so if Larry Page,
Which is our sister company, by the way.
Yes.
wait, if Larry Page is the next Scrooge McDuck, does that make Sundar Pichai the next Howard Hughes?
No.
You don't see him
No,
like
'cause he's
saving his
not-
fingernails and.
Oh, that would be Larry. Like I think the Larry Page would
That
be
would be
like
Larry
Howard
Page.
Hughes kind of.
I think that that's what we thought he was
So
up to the whole time.
Yeah, Pichai is like he's like a Tim Cook. I think that's a really good analogy. He's like he's an operations guy. He's able to execute, and he's able to like responsibly run a big company like this.
And that's what's needed these days
Yeah.
because these companies have gotten so big and to some extent unwieldy, and they have tens of thousands of employees, if not hundreds of thousands of employees.
But the story that Rich Neva wrote today, I mean, looks at how like a lot of these issues are happening under Pichai, right? Like he might be the one that's bringing some maturity to the role, but it was also under his leadership that like Googlers are questioning the culture there.
Oh, hey, this is a really good one from Imagine Sagi. Whose call was it to sell Boston Dynamic? That was surprising to me, and maybe it shows Google won't hold on to the more experimental type companies. That's a really good point. Is that
Also not
writing on the
profitable, I
wall,
think.
or?
I figured the timeline on who sold what. I know that it was Google's company, but within Google, I believe they sold it before they turned into Alphabet, which would mean Brin
Yes.
and Page were still in charge. I believe, if that looks right. I'll look it up right now.
I don't think Boston Dynamic has yet turned into like this insane moneymaker like when eBay sold Skype. eBay
Yeah.
once upon a time owned that company.
But didn't they make money off the sale or?
To SoftBank, I'll have to check on that.
SoftBank owns Boston
SoftBank
Dynamic?
owns them, but then X is also working on their own robot. Watch it on Alphabet City because nobody else watched it. So they're still doing their own robots. Don't worry about that. They're actually they're meant to be everyday robots that help you. The first task they gave it was sorting out garbage.
See, I would rather have that than the killer robots that Boston Dynamics.
Like the scary dog
They're not
robot.
killer robots, but they are reminiscent of the killer robots from Black Mirror, which
That's
horrified
you're talking
me.
about the Dynamics
The
spot.
Boston Dynamics
Yeah,
spot.
but
Yeah.
the ones that X has are more like Johnny 5. So
See, I
That
can get
I
behind
like.
Johnny 5. I love Johnny
That
just
I
5.
with
like.
one arm, so it leaves a
Ah.
little less terrifying. You just
Yeah.
tip them over.
There you
As
go.
long as he can read books really fast. How is he
Yeah,
supposed to
exactly.
do that?
And crack jokes.
Yes. I'm
Yes.
glad you got that reference.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Next one's coming from DC147. I wonder if Android moved out with Google under Alphabet, if that would help appease Android OEM partners. Actually, I wonder if those partners even feel threatened by Pixels these days.
That'd be a nightmare for Google. They shouldn't don't
To
ever
break Android out of
do
Google?
not separate Android out of Google.
Yeah.
Because if without you see Android versions of Android running like on the Fire devices, and that version
Right.
without Google Play services is substantially different and very
Right.
strange. If that would mean that Google would have its own internal software team that makes apps for Android, which would be a separate company, which is almost like when
Yeah.
Google was trying to make stuff work with Nest, which was not the right way to go when Nest is outside. When you could go, hey, we got Google Home, and Nest is also outside.
Yep.
Why?
Yep.
So if they broke it out, I don't think it's going to appease any OEMs. The thing is, Android is it's free essentially, and people want and are used to Google services on the phones when they get them. And it would be a nightmare for these companies to have to figure out, okay, wait, if Google only had Google Play services and no other phone did, that would be a cluster.
Yeah.
Like the partnerships that would happen, you can see that
And-
Bing could become huge.
And again, Google would not want that because that's how they make money is pushing Google services on top of Android. Like,
Yeah.
there's no incentive for Google to do that.
Other companies would go, okay, I want to be your search partner now.
Right. And look, in terms of the Pixel question, I don't think any OEMs feel that Pixel is a real threat. I mean, if you just look at the market share,
Not yet.
it's pretty low. Not yet. I don't think ever. Like,
Well, the thing is
Google's never really intended it to be a competitive threat, right?
It was a Verizon exclusive for a while in the
For a
States. You
while.
couldn't get it. People didn't know you could buy the Pixel and bring it to other carriers.
Right.
I believe this is the first year that it's available on all 4 carriers. So you go to the
Yes.
store, you'll see a Pixel at AT&T, T-Mobile, Sprint, which is like
Sure.
it's like spitting the
Meh.
word out.
Yeah, sure.
Sprint and the other one, Verizon. So like I think this is their first. This is really their first step into it. I think.
Yeah, but if you notice, there isn't a real marketing blitz behind the Pixel phone like there used to be, right? Like at least I would see
I
ads.
see the commercials a lot.
Do you?
Yes.
Maybe I just don't watch enough TV.
Yeah, I don't know. I have a random question for you, Roger, because
Oh.
you
Oh,
know
no.
a lot
no.
about telco.
Not that much. Actually.
When Sprint and T-Mobile finally merge, is the
If
do you know at all whether the Can You Hear Me Now Verizon guy who now works for Sprint,
Yeah.
is he going to have a job at the new T-Mobile? Because
I
I think we all want him to.
I do not. I would be surprised if that sticks around. I think a lot of the it's hard to see him fitting with like the T-Mobile brand of advertising.
Yeah, he's a little more buttoned
And
up.
I get
Well,
the sense
wait.
that like if they merge, like a lot of Sprint's just gonna get like the image of Sprint's just gonna get erased. Because
Yeah.
it's a tainted brand at this point.
Isn't Ledger leaving?
Ledger leaving.
So maybe they become
April.
more buttoned down and the
I
Can You Hear Me
honestly-
guys
Yeah.
back.
I mean,
What I wanna
imagine they
see
will be.
is-
There's his successor, Mike Sievert, is a much more the same deal. He's an executor. He's a smart guy, but he's not as crazy or as unpredictable as John Ledger. So maybe.
I just want to see that guy EGOT in the telco world, which would be to advertise for every single one of the 4 majors, and he's already got 2.
Well, then he needs to jump onto AT&T after
I know
T-Mobile.
exactly. We should make it happen.
To answer that one-
Anyway, sorry for derailing the
Wow,
conversation.
yeah.
I really, I apologize.
I'm finally going to answer that Boston Dynamics question. The price of purchase and the price of sale are both undisclosed. So whether or
Okay.
not money was made on it, I bet it was a loser. But
But they can
that's a
afford it.
guess.
They can
Yeah.
afford it.
Yeah.
Of course.
EGOT of Tech World might be the best analogy that the show
Yeah.
has ever come up with. We
Thank
need to
you.
copyright that right
Well
now.
done, Ben.
Yeah,
Thank
seriously.
You. Thank you.
Shout out to Eric for his Johnny Number 5 impression. More input. That's terrible on my part, but I
Well
gave it an
done.
effort.
Well
I
done.
made the effort. I put myself out there. Go ahead and at me in the comments.
Kudos.
You guys shot it down earlier, but as far as the comment I made about see yourself become the villain or die a hero or see yourself become the villain, look at Silicon Valley right now. All of the cool trendsetters are stepping away. Everybody with any facet of cool, from leisure to page to how many others are we going to lose? It's becoming this like real stiff corporate environment, and it's kind of interesting. Is that why they're canceling the show?
That's exactly why.
Are they canceling the show?
Silicon Valley ends like this month.
Well, okay.
The show.
I mean,
not the whole
that's
place.
the season finale.
Series finale.
Serious finale.
Series finale.
Yeah.
Well, it's a mature industry. I mean, it used to be very different. It was like the Wild West. Now it's like,
Yep.
okay, we're all public. A lot of these cool companies are public companies. When they weren't public, yeah, you had these crazier kinds of things going on. But as you're going through all of these changes, going from, oh, it's 2 guys, let's chill out, and making these servers in a garage versus this massive company which owns like what Chelsea Market in New York owns these giant spots. Took YouTube on when it was basically a copyright nightmare. When there was also like wheels above our heads. With all of these changes, because there was construction, that's what was going on in Google and these other giant companies.
Well put, yeah. I
And
feel like you're like telling me a story.
And because of that, the cool stuff is going away. What's going to be the next, Wild West and unregulated stuff? I mean, I don't know what. But the thing is,
I don't know if there will be, because beyond the fact that it's converting from Wild West to a more of a corporate environment, I think we've gone from like being in love with the tech world and being in love with the success story of these college dropouts or high school dropouts that like make billions of dollars, to like realizing that these companies do a lot of terrible things. And I think that's why I'm a little skeptical about like what the next, like even the next big innovation. I think a lot of us now are jaded, or at least not jaded, but more. We're a little bit more on guard because we're aware of some of the potential pitfalls that the tech world has given us already, and like aware of like what future things like AI or self-driving cars, what like the evils of that. We're a lot more skeptical going into those next big trends.
Okay, so a good example of that would be crypto, and right. the view of crypto bros right out of the gate, I would say, was negative. And it was partly because a lot of these folks were assumed and viewed as just trying to make a quick buck. They're just trying to make money, as opposed to how we were initially viewing Google.
They also had all those crazy, like the crazy lingo, right?
Yeah, like the Lamborghinis and all this other HODL and all this other nonsense. Yeah. But Google, at least initially, was presented as like, this is how we're going to make your lives easier. We're going to make your life a little bit easier. We're going to make things a little bit better for you. We're going to provide these services, and we're going to provide them for free. It started to get much more controversial, as you were mentioning, partly because of security lapses by a handful of these companies, and the other one is to keep growing. They ended up wanting to partner with the government,
right? And
that becomes controversial. That becomes really questionable, and it kind of makes sense that a lot of their employees would stand up and say like, "Hey, this isn't what we signed up for."
Right. And like, look, in the early days, they were offering a ton of free services like email or whatever, and you're like, "Oh, this is all great, free stuff." I think it's only like the last few years we're like, wait, what is the actual cost of this free stuff? And like we're just realizing what that cost is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, good point, BVG.
Very much. Yeah. We are almost out of time, so let's take one more from Michael Brown. I think Google should be a little more structured with their departments and projects. For example, CNET doesn't have Ben Fox Rubin covering Amazon and smart cars.
Yet.
I like that analogy too.
Yeah, no, he doesn't.
Roger would want me to.
He doesn't work hard enough, actually. Yeah. So we should consider adding a new beat. Smart cars.
Thanks, Michael.
He's got a good point, though. I mean, is there merit to a little more organization to the organization?
I mean, it's actually a fantastic question, because I think we wrestle with this too, because Amazon initially was an e-commerce company, but now it's everything, right? Server, it's media, it's literally everything. And so it does kind of change the definition of how we cover these things, right? Like, it's not just you covering Amazon, it's Joan covering it from an Amazon Prime Video perspective, right? It's Alfred covering it from a security perspective. So it's there's already a lot of bleed through on that. This is probably more insider baseball for us than you care to hear, but like,
why do you think they're here?
True. I think it's forced us to kind of change the way we approach how we cover these companies too.
Yeah, I would argue it's become much more interesting.
Yeah,
from that perspective, as opposed to like just going to an event and being like, "Here's the doodad."
Right.
Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
I mean, it definitely depends on how the head of the top company in Alphabet treats the other people beneath them. Like if you're talking about Pichai, head of the YouTube head, like if you never listen to her ideas, it's not going to work. So it's really about the management structure. So even if you only have one company, if you had this ability where the top person's like, go ask that other person, go ask this other person, go ask that other person, and you never get a straight answer, it doesn't matter how many layers of these structures you have, it's not going to work. So an organizational structure is only as good as management, honestly, because if they're all pointing, talk to Ben, talk to Roger, it's like you're not going to get anywhere.
Right.
So I don't know if structure necessarily breeds efficiency.
Interesting perspective.
Good point.
Yeah.
Okay, we are out of time. There are a lot of really good questions still filtering in that I'm going to pocket for when this conversation inevitably continues. So thank you for those.
One more.
Well, closing thoughts. Closing thought award goes to our old buddy, the Datch. Has anyone asked, will Google still be one of the best places to work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like money-wise.
Perks wise, yeah.
Perks and money-wise, for sure. You
I mean,
get a bunch of
you're not
free
going to be
food.
like a millionaire. You're not going to get like stock options that are like that will somehow turn you into an instant millionaire or billionaire. But in terms of the perks, I mean, look, they're on par with a lot of the Silicon Valley companies, right? Like free food, laundry. I think there's childcare, like in the facility. So there's a lot of great stuff, like stuff that we don't get. So
We
No,
get
we
free
don't.
soda.
we get free soda.
In
We
this
get,
one office.
we get free seltzer water.
Brought to you by Polar Seltzer.
Don't you dare.
No, 'cause they'll do it. They will absolutely do it.
That and you get sweet arcade machines built by me and Bridget.
That
so
is
you're welcome
true.
for
That is a huge perk for me. I love that TMNT machine.
It really depends, like how you view your job, I guess.
Yeah.
If you're happy with getting paid a lot of money, more than the average American, and you like the perks that you don't even have to leave your office and get free food 3 times a day, then great. It is a fantastic place to work. And I still think that, like, if you go to dinner parties and say I work at Google, most people are still going to be like, "Hey, that's great," as opposed to "Screw you, buddy."
yeah.
Maybe
Which
in the
might be-
tech world,
which
but
might
not
be-
outwardly, not
I don't know,
broadly.
like maybe not with Google, but I would wonder about if you said you worked for Facebook.
Exactly.
That would
I
be
was
a
thinking
different
the same
question.
thing.
Yeah,
Yes.
that would be a different reaction.
Be like,
But yeah, Google, I mean, as much heat as Google's taken, I don't think outwardly, reputation-wise, like it would be a huge hit. Like, oh, you work for Google? Start looking for other career opportunities. Like, no, you don't. I don't think you get that. I think you're like, oh, Google, that's cool, right? Like,
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
still it's still there.
Yeah.
I don't think that they've taken a huge. It's kind of the same thing. I think to a certain extent with Amazon. I mean, like I cover Amazon, so I'm very close to like the day to day whatever. But
I don't know. If you say you work for Amazon, I think the reaction is like, oh God. Is it like, are you tired all the time?
I guess
Are
the
you-
first question that people ask
Do you work
is
at the
that-
warehouse?
Yeah. Is it a really hard job? I think is what those folks do here a lot of the time.
that would be
for
my
sure.
perception. It's like fewer perks and more just working constantly.
That's not inaccurate.
there's
That's
a great
pretty
tagline,
accurate.
Amazon, fewer perks, more work.
That is pretty goddamn accurate.
There you go.
That is-
We got
Anyway.
another one to trademark before we let everybody go there.
More perks, fewer perks, more work.
Amazon.
You should be proud of yourself for that, Ayaz. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Sorry for the missing in action yesterday. That was my fault. My kitchen sink exploded, so I had to deal with that. But, yeah, we'll be back again tomorrow. Take care, everybody. Ben, go ahead and send them home.
Okay, if you wouldn't mind, we would appreciate you subscribing and ringing the bell if you haven't already. There's nothing better than starting off the day with intelligent conversation with our loyal fan base. Plus, talking with you guys helps us learn what topics you want us to report on. Also, feel free to head down to the show description where you'll find links to today's stories and every place you can subscribe to the audio podcast if you'd rather take the show on the go. Anyway, thanks everybody. I'm BFR.
I'm Ayaz Akhtar.
I'm Roger Chang.
Thanks for joining us.
Can't get enough? Check out the Daily Supercharge, our extended post show with special features, audience Q&A, and in-depth reviews. Available now wherever you get your podcasts.